Welcome to episode 70 of Winging It. 5 plus 5. It's not Akinbiyi. I don't think either of us has ever wanted to record a podcast less Hesketh right at this moment.
No. I think the first thing I said upon full time was, let's just get this over with.
Yeah, we're recording straight after the walloping we've just taken at St James's Park. 5-0 on the night. Topping the 4 from last season.
Yeah, Roy Hodgson haters, be damned.
Well, we've got another shipping of 5 goals to talk about before that as well.
God, great.
I'm so miserable. I'm not even sure. I want to mention that in Ligue 1 in France last week, Nice, Lille, and Brest were consecutive in the league.
Great.
But even that got ruined. I think Nice drew and Lille won, so they ruined it.
I honestly thought when you said Ligue 1, I thought you were going to say Lyon just got beaten 5-0. Texter's having a whale of a time.
No. On the plus side, we've had some contract news. Danny Munoz, although maybe not as official as we think it is, but looks like it might be. And Will Hughes got new contracts. And a little teaser from Ollie that there might be some more on the way, Hesketh.
Yeah, he said, I think it was at the end of the press conference yesterday, as we record Tuesday, where he said he couldn't confirm Munoz just yet, but that we can expect to confirm a few things in the next couple of days. So I'm sure shipping 10 goals in 2 games and then announcing a contract for a defender is great timing.
Yes. Well, and then if, the hope obviously will be that the other 2 contracts are Gay and Mateta, I imagine.
Yeah, I would hope at least one of those. As we've sort of done in the past, you'd assume it's a new contract with a release clause. Certainly for Gay. For JP, maybe it's a new contract with just tons more money. But yeah, I mean, I think we need all the good news we can get after the last 2 games. So whatever comes out, hopefully it's a nice positive that we can get behind.
Although maybe this is why Glasner started negging Mateta in his post-match after Man City, try and drive down the price a little bit.
Yeah, you're not as good as you think you are, JP. We're going to knock off 10 grand.
Get off at half-time. We're not going to let you take a penalty at Newcastle.
Exactly.
You're only getting 100 grand a week, not 120.
It was the goal bonus. He gets one more goal, he gets a bumper deal. So Glasner was like, Ebbs, you're taking the fucking penalty, mate. Get JP away from it.
Oh, God. And just think how well it started against City.
I know. It seems a long time ago.
In a parallel universe, we're 4-0 up at half-time at City. It was like an incredible start to that game. I think probably harsh on City that we went 2-0 up. But then when it was 2-0, it could have been 3 and could have been 4 with chances missed. And unfortunately, probably resigned to the realms of forgotten wonder goals that Palace have scored. Our opener, which saw 24 passes and having the ball for 75 seconds.
Fucking mad. We didn't have the ball for 75 seconds total in the second half, though.
But yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because there's, I was, I'll talk about it later. I was at an event at Selhurst Park last night for the DS Eagles launch of their Glad All Over track. And we were talking about forgotten goals. I think it was me, Matt Woosnam, and Bobby Mancy. And we were talking about, do you remember... Not Ollie. I'm getting Owen Garvin scoring like a 40-yard wonder half volley at Preston away.
Yeah.
No one remembers it because we lost.
Yeah. Fucking hell. Yeah, I mean...
Also worth mentioning, Andy Dorman scored a diving header from 20 yards in that game.
Jesus Christ.
Stricken from the memory, though.
Yeah, Andy Dorman stricken from the memory, never mind a goal.
Still think about him every time I see a pack of nuts, to be honest. So.
Listen, St. Mirren's finest he was. Yeah, I mean, to go back to the beginning of the Man City game, it was great. It was great. That first goal was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, like you say, we had the ball for a long time, looked very confident and comfortable with it. And really just sort of picked them apart in a way that you wouldn't normally think in previous years Palace could do. And then to get the second goal from a set piece, I mean, more Palacey, was great.
15th set piece of the season. I did see a tweet flying around that was trying to suggest that that's the Premier League record for the most ever in a set piece goals in a season, which is like, that's bollocks.
Can't be
so I looked it up, and Arsenal scored 20 last season, so it can't be a record, and that's excluding pens.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot more would have been made of it if that was the record. But then when Ebbs made it 3-0, I was like, fucking hell, this is it. Even I can be positive, but obviously absolutely short-lived, and I could just go back to being my normal self. But I thought we played really, really well that first sort of, 25, 30 minutes. Sarr had the chance as well, didn't he? That just went over. He really should have scored. But I thought especially him and Munoz on that side looked absolutely scorching against them at the beginning of the game. And as we know, it all sort of went downhill, and then the tactics at halftime changed it and negated that completely. But like you say, for the first sort of 25 minutes or so, dreamland, really.
Yeah, I'd say City obviously hit the post, and Henderson made a good save at 0-0. And then you might recall from the last pod against City, my boss is a Man City fan and came to the game with me. He was at the game, and he messaged me going, De Bruyne's hit the post, and you've gone down the other end and scored 2 goals. It feels like it's going to be one of those days.
Little did he know.
Well, he said as well, when if the third stands, he just thinks it's over. Like City's heads would have dropped. Mm-hmm. He said the fans were getting really, really edgy already, and what was quite interesting about it as well is, I think if that Ebbs goal goes in, their experimental formation that they use to basically try and nullify our threats, which is quite special, that you go to the Etihad and they're trying to, they set up to, do you something, but they probably have to can that then and give up on that formation. And but alas, Ebbs went a little bit too quickly, doesn't count. Sarr sticks it just the wrong side of the crossbar, and then shout out the Gingers, Kevin De Bruyne kind of just picks Man City up and runs with him on his back, doesn't he? And starts it off with a free kick that, I don't know, I'm Dino's biggest apologist, but I think he should do a bit better with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to someone the other day who was saying, Man City aren't what they were. And I'm like, they pretty good to not be what you were and still have De Bruyne just saying, fuck it, I'll do it myself then. And I mean, to be honest, obviously I'm a big moany git, but when that free kick went in, I was just, fuck, like you can just feel we're going to headless chicken it for a bit and really sort of lose our way, which is a shame because, they did have a couple of chances, but we did look very comfortable going forward, and we knew what we were doing, and we were doing it well. But as soon as that free kick went in, you sort of had that feeling, and their equaliser was sort of a bit scruffy, but sort of different points in the move they probably could have done better and scored from earlier. So as it ended up, I was quite happy that halftime came, when sort of 15 minutes before I was like, fucking, let's get a third, let's do them. And like you said, from then on, the tails are up. I think there was a lot less worry. They didn't need to think about what we were doing in the game, really, because they could just take the game away from us. And when we came out in the second half and JP had gone off for a midfielder, I was a bit worried about what was going on. And as it turns out, we just really didn't have anything in the second half, did we? And I'm sure you agree, them scoring 2 minutes into the half means whatever the fuck was said at half time is done and dusted.
Well, I mean, obviously what happens at half time is a huge flop, and probably one of the few times we've seen Glasner get it horribly wrong. Well, listen, this is Glasner speaking. He says, "This time it was not good. Believe me, Saturday evening was tough for me. I'm very self-critical. So when I take such a decision, I'm really close to hating myself in the evening. My staff and I were discussing the change on the flight home from Manchester, by the way."
It's not very carbon effective, is it?
No, it's not. It wasn't a tactical change because it can work in a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. It was more the signal I sense. I'm always talking about being brave and playing with courage. The signal sent by taking off the striker while drawing at half time was more that we wanted to protect the draw rather than win the game. This is a message I wouldn't want to share with the team, but somewhere deep in our minds, this was the message. I never want to protect something. I want to see the glass half full, not empty. But maybe in this situation, I saw it being half empty because the pressure straight before half time. We have to learn from our mistakes.
Well,
life comes at you fast.
Yes,
I can't demand this from the players and then not do it to myself. Otherwise, I'd lose my authenticity. I tell the players they are making mistakes, that making mistakes is not a weakness. When I make a mistake, I have to stick to my principles. And that's like, that's all wonderful. Like, put your hands up, made a mistake. He's got plenty in the bank because he hasn't made it. And he's putting the responsibility on himself, which is what you should do as a manager. You shouldn't be throwing it on your players. Although I did see another thing that said taking Mateta off wasn't the mistake.
Yeah.
First signs of the wheels coming off, that so publicly going after Mateta. Well, what was interesting about it, even with not having an amazing game, Mateta, by obviously not winning anything, but he's still occupying and making things happen for Sarr and Ebbs, who were getting on the ball loads.
Yeah, I think exactly that. I thought it was pretty harsh on JP because I didn't, when I saw he wasn't on, I was like, I must have picked up a knock because he was fine in the first half. Like, I know you say, Glasner was saying he didn't win his duels or whatever, but he didn't noticeably sort of do nothing. He was, like you say, he was occupying the defenders. He was allowing other players to have more of the ball and get into the game effectively, which they obviously did by setting up and scoring the goal. So I thought that was pretty harsh on JP, to be honest. Although I guess, I don't know if it's because of a bit of backlash on it. He did say right at the beginning of his press conference for Newcastle's game, of course JP is going to start the game. Because I was wondering if someone said, like, are you going to drop him now? But I mean, I like that he's come out and held his hands up, because I get a bit wound up by managers who just blame everything but themselves. You can have the odd game, obviously, where things just go wrong and the team scores a fluky goal, Frank Lampard. But like, if your decisions have turned the game negatively, then I think it's pretty good to come out and say it. It's interesting that he said about, deep down we were trying to protect the draw, because that is very much the opposite of what we normally hear about. Like, we're going to go out and take the game to them. If we don't go into a game thinking we're going to win, what's the point? So that's pretty interesting to hear. I hadn't heard that before just now. But yeah, I just think our biggest sort of threat in the first half was Sarr. on that side, and he just, not through no fault of his own in the second half, he just didn't get to see the fucking ball. So I think it's a real shame. And like I said, once they went 3-2, I was like, well, I don't really know what we're going to do now. Yeah, a shame.
Yeah, and it's true. What makes it even more of a bizarre decision to take Matera off is that it is Sarr who's then put up top. And I think, excuse me, I think you've taken a lot of Sarr's effectiveness away by putting him up top. I can see, at home against Ipswich for the last 10 minutes when all else has fouled. I get it, and you're trying to find different ways to break that low block and that resistance. Makes a bit more sense there, but with 45 minutes to go, especially when he'd been finding so many pockets of space, it felt very, very bizarre. And obviously we had no attacking threat in the second half whatsoever, and they just run us over. And let's be honest, it could have been much like tonight against Newcastle. It could have been a lot more than 5.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and the thing, obviously we're going to get into this Newcastle game, unfortunately. But the one thing, like in the Man City game, I was like, we're missing Gay. That's quite a big deal. And, Glasner afterwards said that Richards and Lacroix hadn't really trained that much. So I'm like, everyone just sort of had their worst defensive display in that game. And it was against Man City. And as much as people can say Man City aren't as good as they were, they're still pretty fucking good. And they've still got a lot of good players. Annoyingly, we've now got Gay back, and I assume the players are a bit more fit than they were on Saturday. I don't know. But it's like we don't have any excuses for today. We would say we'll get into it, but the reasoning that we got for the defence being a bit haphazard on Saturday is not there for tonight. So we really need to look at what's happening and sort it out, because it's been shit for the last 2 games.
It has. And, well, I mean, it was shit at Southampton.
Yeah, that's true.
And, Brighton did really well against us for large periods of that game as well, And just a couple of good goals got us over the line in that one. But, again, could have been very different if Brighton took advantage of us having 9 men.
Yeah, true.
Which again could be going on the back of, a lot of defeats. But going into the game against Newcastle tonight, we're shit up in the northeast, let's face it, particularly in midweek. I think,
yes.
I sort of think on Wednesday nights, that makes it now 5 defeats and 1 draw in the last 6 on a Wednesday in the northeast. We've only scored 1 goal in that time. It dates back to 2005. And that 1 goal we scored was a lone goal.
Yes.
Making the last time we scored in the northeast on a Wednesday night, Matt Jansen in 1998. When him and Lombardo scored in a 2-1 win.
Yeah. God, that's depressing. To be honest, the reason I don't go to Newcastle away anymore is because I've been 5 or 6 times and I've never seen a score. I've also seen us miss a penalty when Kabay missed a penalty up there a few years ago. So I've just called it a day on Newcastle away, and I'm pretty happy that that's the case after tonight, to be honest.
When you called it a day, didn't we then proceed in winning the following game 1-0?
Yes, we did.
Was it a Luca penalty? Was that...
Yes, it was. Literally the next time we played him.
Love it. Well, at least you're not the curse anymore. But that was the going into the game. So, record going up to shit. Lost there heavily last season as well. What's interesting is after the game, seeing Newcastle 5, Palace 0, with an expected goals of 1.48 for Newcastle and 2.22 for Palace, which I think says more about that stat than how the game actually went.
I don't want to. I don't want us to turn into Brighton and start giving it with the XG champions. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Right. So I started taking notes for this game, and my notes got as far as I think Barnes making it 3-0 was as far as my notes got. And then I gave up. I was like, "Fuck this." But I did reach out to a friend of the pod, Chris Winslow, who's up there tonight, and he sent in a little voice note for us on tonight's game.
Terence and all, I'm recording this as I'm trying to find somewhere that will do me a double old-fashioned so I can forget the last 2 hours of a fairly eventful trip up to Newcastle. How'd you sum that up? The question, I think the biggest issue was the mental resilience. We went 1-0 down, very good goal, low XG, and then people around us were kind of like, actually, do you know what? I think we've got, a bit of fight in us still. Looked like we were threatening going forward, had a couple of decent chances, and then I think obviously, as you will probably discuss in far more eloquent detail than I'm about to, that penalty miss was the game changer, and you could just see that the heads dropped. I spoke with Cole at half time, and he said that you could actually see our back three were in position as the penalty was taken. So the lack of confidence in Ep70 in taking that kind of shot us in the foot, within 20 seconds it felt like they were back down the other end, 2-0, and then they just piled on and on and on, and I think the worry was not necessarily conceding 5, because that happened on Saturday, and we still look back at that with a bit of positivity. It's the manner and the resilience. The heads went down at 2-3-0. No one was really on the pitch trying to perk people up. Individual errors throughout the game costing us. Even the really, really basic stuff like half the players weren't wearing the correct boots and sliding all over the pitch. Reminding me of France at Southampton, but half the team were doing that. And as a performance, it was really, really poor. The away end, however, very, very good. Kudos to all of those that travelled up with us. It's not the easiest of places to get to on a Wednesday night, and I imagine people will be making a long trek back or trying to find a bar in Newcastle and enjoy some cheap Geordie ale. But as I messaged Terence throughout the game, there's a couple of times where I thought, we might be approaching refund territory, and I don't think we've done that in the Premier League in a while. But conceding 5 goals back to back for the first time is worrying, and you need to go into the Bournemouth game, on the front foot, looking to try and, really, really capitalise, because that semi-final is going to creep up on us very, very soon, and you don't want to go into that on the back of 4 defeats.
Yeah, shout out to Chris there. You had to dodge the Geordies to be able to record that note outside the stadium. Couple of points in there. So 100% kudos to the fans that travelled indeed.
Big time.
There'll be a lot of those who were at City as well on the weekend. And, I've done my trials like that in the past, doing every game, and you end up in scenarios like that.
Yeah.
I think we had 2 in the northeast back to back ones. Didn't we have Newcastle and Sunderland on a weekend?
Yes, we fucking did. And I did both of those on the official coach.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so shout out to everyone who went. Heroes, every one of you, and we could hear you on the TV as well. Which is some feat when you're at a stadium that big up in the heavens and you're losing 5-0. So yeah, fair play. But that's Palace fans, isn't it? With whenever we're getting a humping like that, that's what it tends to be, particularly away from home. So
yeah, I mean, I got to say, I enjoyed we had a period of about 20 seconds where we passed the ball 3 times and we're getting the olays from the away end. So that was great.
Exactly. So yeah, excellent stuff. Another thing I was picked up on is the resilience that he talked about there, and the lack of it really, and how we just kind of caved in this game. Mm-hmm. Probably until the subs came on, they injected a bit of energy and a bit of life, and we had some chances towards the end. But obviously Newcastle were just seeing the game out at that point. Do you think there's an element of FA Cup semi-final trip to Wembley's in everyone's mind? So we've lost some percentage points in intensity because people are thinking about, I don't want to get injured before Wembley. and all of that kind of jazz?
Maybe. I hope not, because that shouldn't excuse the shit passing and fucking crap tackles and stuff. But I do think there is something to the resilience, the mental resilience, because like I said, as soon as that free kick went in against Man City, we looked all over the shop. And then tonight, we'll talk about that penalty, but when Eze misses that penalty, straight away, like they're up the other end and scoring. And then it's like, fuck, well, now we're completely headless chickens. And, I think it was before the penalty, but there was a point where, we gave the ball away quite easily or something. And I was just like we're trying too hard to do stuff, we just need to play our normal game. Obviously Newcastle are in a good spell and, they're a good team and all that, but just we're going away from what we're good at. And it shouldn't happen when we let a goal in. That shouldn't cause us to turn inside out. And the last couple of games, it certainly looks like it's gotten to us and really shaken us. And then it just snowballs to the point where we're letting in 5 goals 2 games in a row. So
for the first time in our history, no less.
And it's the 3rd time this season we've let in 5 goals. That's pretty shit. Even though I think for 90% of the season we've been a really good defensive team. I mean, we've obviously broken all those clean sheet records and that. But yeah, I don't know if it's a semi-final. Maybe subconsciously that has something to do with it. But I'm just a bit more worried that it seems to be if we let a goal in, we just start to panic. And I don't really understand why we're doing that in the last couple of games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it probably is in the back of people's minds. I think we saw that a bit the last time we made the cup final as well in 2016. League form took an even extra big nose dive when we started to progress through the cup.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's something in that. Maybe not, but yeah, you're right. Conceding the goals is concerning, but I never got carried away with those records. I mean, all the away clean sheets and making as many as we did, and obviously breaking records is great, but we haven't played any of the big clubs away at that point.
Yeah.
We haven't been to Newcastle, we haven't been to Arsenal, we haven't been to Manchester City and all of that kind of stuff. And there's some more big ones to come, Spurs as well, Liverpool as well. So, there's all these ones. So whilst it was before the City game, we'd conceded the fewest goals away from home out of any team in the Premier League. It's a heavily misleading stat. Yeah. And it's started to show now, and we will be far down that table. We won't be anywhere near the top anymore, as our beautiful plus goal difference has slipped away into the negative, I think, after tonight. So big shame there. Mark Gay, heavily linked with Newcastle over the summer, did not sign for them, still managed to score 2 goals for them.
Yeah, he's on the top scorers list, just under Isak, I think.
Yeah. Saved 80 million quid and still got output out of him.
Yeah.
Incredible things.
Fucking terrible. Poor guy.
And as they said on the coverage, only the 2nd player ever to do that in a Premier League, score home and away own goals against the same club.
Well, we're breaking records, T. So
like Glasner's after all of them. Never conceded back-to-back 5 in the league.
Bang.
Tick. Never had a player score own goals before since 1998. Bang, take that.
Bang, take that.
It was Jamie Carragher against Spurs, by the way, was the only other Premier League player.
Listen, it's either Jamie Carragher or fucking Lewis Dunk, isn't it? It's one of the two.
Or Richard Dunn. It could have been
Richard Dunn, fair.
Yeah. So it's horrible, really. It's all horrible.
It is. I don't really want to go too in depth for all the goals that we conceded. Can we just talk about the penalty?
Yes,
I mean, I'm sure we don't want to talk about the penalty.
No,
but
I tell you what, Darren England, when looking at the screen, really, really wanted Pope to have touched that ball. But even if he did, I don't see how it's not still a penalty.
Yeah, like the first thing that you see him look at, I'm like, okay, penalty. And he's looking at it, and then they slow it down. I'm like, well, that makes it look even worse. That's a penalty. And then right at the end, they really sped it up. And I was like, I don't know what else you need. They've done everything. Just give it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's clear or obvious if Pope touches the ball or not, to be honest, from all the angles you looked at. But again, as I say, I just don't think, even if Pope does touch it, he's still just recklessly cleaned out the player. It's massively, massively dangerous.
Yeah.
And Chris Richards is lucky he wears a helmet, because otherwise it would have been in some severe damage. Yeah. More on Chris Richards later. But gives the penalty. With hindsight, the worst decision.
Fucking hell, yeah. I'll just take the 1-0 defeat.
Do you know what I thought was happening? I thought, because it was taking so long, Ebbs was doing that thing where he would stand on the penalty spot with the ball until all the players clear out, and then he gives it to Mateta.
Yeah. Because it looked like when they sort of, on the TV, when it cut after he give it, and it sort of cut to the area, Pope was obviously shithousing, because he kept like going up towards and then backing off a bit and then going up again. And then you saw JP fucking go down on one knee to stop Tonali getting close to the edge of it. I'm like, obviously there's some shithousing going on. But like you said, I assumed he would just be like, even if he's holding it, JP would just say, okay, well, give me the ball. And like Eze scored penalties for us before, but I was saying it the whole time. I actually have a message which was in my group chat at the time, which I didn't look at because I don't look at my phone during games. But it was friend of the pod, Miserable Dave, who said, when Ebbs was about to take the penalty, I had Sam's voice in my head saying he doesn't trust him to take pens as he does stupid run-ups. And as I'm sure Vanessa can attest, for about a minute solid before he took it, I was like, I don't trust him to take this penalty because he does stupid run-ups.
Do you know that run-up was so stupid? I think it was bordering on illegal, really, because he fully stopped. You're not allowed to fully stop.
No. If anything, we should be able to take it again. It was just, oh God, like even when those run-ups, even if you score them, I still don't fucking like it. And just it's so stupid. But the penalty itself, he obviously was waiting for Pope to sort of lean one way or the other, and just fucking hit it like a pea roller. I'm like, fuck, mate, that's crap.
Yeah, I think it was the on-target version of what Jason Puncheons was at Spurs away.
Does it count towards our XP? Our XG?
XG?
Yeah.
Well, just a penalty, the XG is 0.7.
Yeah.
That's it, I believe.
Great.
It might be 0.71 or something.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just, as soon as you get a penalty, that is the XG of a penalty. I think, 7 out of 10 penalties are scored or something.
Unless Ebb's taken them. And then 0 out of 10 are scored.
Well, that's his first miss for Palace, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he took it. That's it. He must have just said, I'm having it. And JP didn't want to argue. I guess. Because JP's a penalty taker and JP's on the pitch. And him having a hat over his ear shouldn't make any difference to taking a penalty. But I don't know.
Then obviously straight down the other end, Gay OG. There's not much Gay can really do about it.
Nah, I think if he lets it go across, Isak's scoring anyway, isn't he? So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how Isak didn't have at least a hat trick.
I know
Henderson made 2 brilliant saves for him, one at 0-0 and then one around 4-0 or something, I guess.
Yeah,
somewhere around that. But could have. Luckily, I suppose we kept it to 5. But any complaints? I mean, one other, maybe this is fairly controversial statement. A lot of people were talking about if Gay goes, that Lacroix gets the armband. I think Lacroix is a fair weather leader when it's going well. He's a leader. When it's not going so well, he retreats a bit. And I've noticed this a couple of times earlier in the season, right at the start of his thing. And I think he's just done it again tonight. You know, he's made arguably 2 mistakes. Well, definitely 1, maybe 2 that have led to goals, and kind of disappeared into himself a little bit.
Yeah, and the mistakes that he made as well. I mean, it's obviously easy with hindsight, but they're just stupid. Like, you just don't need to do it. You just don't need to do it. And I get, like, if you mess up for 1 goal, just again, it goes back to this sort of like losing your head. Just steel yourself and be like, okay, I won't do that again. Do it simple. Do simple things. If you have to pass it back to the goal, if you have to punt it out, just do it. And I definitely think it got to him, and he has made a couple of mistakes like that this season. So yeah, I mean, I can see what you're saying. I think the fact Hendo was captain against Man City, I think, kind of makes me think that the management or the coaching staff also maybe think that he's not quite there yet. But yeah, I don't think anyone really held themselves up in too much glory over the last couple of games. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm like, not by any stretch of the imagination trying to slag Leclerc off. He's obviously been largely brilliant for us since arriving. And just a few observations as I grump through a 5-0.
Do you know what? I reckon just give it to Kamada just to wind people up. It's funny.
Well,
Captain Daichi.
I reckon there probably would have been a few tweets somewhere saying that Daichi was to blame for the penalties missed somehow.
100%. I was saying that. I thought, how are people going to blame Kamada for this?
Yes. I think that's it, basically. Oh, but the only other thing is, talked about Glasner slagging off JP after City. Pretty sure Henderson and Hughes were having a massive Barney in this game for about 10 to 15 seconds, just screaming at each other. You sort of, as Henderson kicked a ball clear out towards Mitchell on the sideline, you immediately saw him start pointing infield, clearly telling someone to fuck off. And then as the camera widened back out onto like the main view, you saw Will Hughes was facing Henderson and he was pointing and screaming back at him. So they were clearly having a massive Barney over who thought he should have done what, I guess.
Yeah.
But, is the aura gonna fall off and everyone's gonna be at each other's throats by the end of the season?
Yeah, we're going to be fighting each other at the end of the season. So it's funny. Like, I do. Every team is guilty of it. Every fan is guilty of it. Like that. You always hear managers or players be like, "We don't get too high when it's going well. We don't get too low when it's going badly." It's like if you speak to fans, everything's we're the best team ever, or we're fucked. We're fucked. We all hate each other. Sell them all. Gay shit anyway. I love it. I love football.
Yeah, and it's become increasingly more like that over the last decade, I would say as well. Yeah. It's very, it's either this or that. It's very, everything's black or white. There's no nuance anymore.
To be honest, like when we said we were going to do the pod tonight, I was like, this is going to be like one of the few times where we've done I don't know what they're called, like Arsenal TV, and they just do it straight afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, as long as you and I don't start calling Glasner shit, slagging each other off, and we can slag Albert off, but by the way, we haven't mentioned it, Albert's not here again. And not because he's in Newcastle. But yeah, it's the first time we've done one, or one of the few times we've done one right after the game. I think, to be fair, at 5-0, Palace fans, we've got enough of a sense of humour to be like, fuck it, whatever. Just don't lose 5-0 to Bournemouth.
Yeah, well, we've scored 5 against them at home before. Maybe we can replicate that instead. Shock everyone.
Yeah, be nice.
Last thing on St James's Park, I'm 99.9% sure I've never heard this at full time there before, but they definitely play Glad all over at full time. Keep it classy. Like,
yeah.
you've played us off the park.
Yeah.
Don't need to rub it in.
Listen, I've already heard Alan Pardew tell us we're playing too open. All right. I can't get much lower than this, guys. Yeah, I was in the other room and heard Glad all over and shouted back to Vanessa to like, was she watching the video that just came out that we'll talk about? And she was like, no, that's Newcastle's PA system. I was like, you fucking assholes.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, I don't expect anything better from them, to be honest.
No, true.
Yes. So, well, Bournemouth's up next and hopefully change of fates. But we're going to go off the team now. We're going to talk a little bit about the DS Eagles. Went to Selhurst last night, as I mentioned earlier, to watch the premiere of the reimagined version of Glad All Over by the DS Eagles. And I've got the press release here. I got sent a press release. Imagine that press release. And it says, Down syndrome Eagles and Palace Stars unite for special cover of Glad All Over to challenge Down syndrome stereotypes. Palace for Life, the official charity of Crystal Palace FC, has released a cover of the club's iconic walkout anthem, Glad All Over by the Dave Clark Five. Performed by its Down syndrome Eagles football team, the DS Eagles and Crystal Palace players, the song aims to challenge stereotypes around Down syndrome and employment and raise funds for the charity work. Since Glad All Over was first played over the tannoy at Selhurst Park in January 1861, the song has become synonymous with Crystal Palace, ringing out as the team enter the pitch and when they score. With the special cover version, the DS Eagles are cementing their own place in Crystal Palace history. This cover of the 1963 hit by the Dave Clark Five marks the culmination of DS Game On, a year-long Palace for Life program designed to help people with Down syndrome develop skills and confidence for employment. Combining two of the charity's most successful initiatives, DS Eagles, which provides sports sessions for people with Down syndrome, and Game On, its flagship employment program, partly funded by the Premier League and Professional Footballers Association. The project gives participants hands-on experience in a range of jobs. Recorded over 60 years after the original release in a studio near Selhurst Park, the DS Eagles version of Glad All Over features vocals from Palace players Chris Richards, Amy Everett, Fliss Gibbons, and Sinead Hopcroft, alongside Palace for Life coaches. A behind-the-scenes music video accompanies the release, capturing the recording process and offering a glimpse into the DS Game On employment program that supported the singers throughout the year. While there is no specific data on how many people with Down syndrome are in work, disability charity MENCAP estimates that 65% of people with learning difficulties, Down syndrome included, want to work, yet fewer than 20% are employed. The first year of DS Game On saw 15 participants try out roles in cooking, t-shirt design, caring, barista training, and music, proving that given the opportunity, people with Down syndrome can thrive in the workplace. However, barriers like prejudice, limited opportunities, and low expectations still persist. Palace for Life hope Glad All Over will raise awareness, challenge outdated assumptions, and generate funds to support its employment programs for young people across South London. The DS Eagles are all passionate Palace fans, a part of a wider community supported by Palace for Life, the club's official charity. Palace for Life, which works with over 16,000 young people each year, running programs that boost employment prospects, build confidence, and create new opportunities, alongside initiatives focused on mental and physical health, crime prevention, and mentoring. So go and look out for the video. It's on YouTube, all the socials and all of that. The YouTube. I sound like a 70-year-old. It's on the YouTubes. But yeah, go and check out the video. Got lovely little cameo by Dean Henderson at the beginning. We were all talking about how maybe he's got a career in acting ahead of him. I mean, he definitely loves himself enough. So, but if you're going to come for the DS Eagles, you're going to stay for Chris Richards' singing voice, which spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, it's particularly bad. How would you best describe his singing performance, Hesketh?
Probably the singing equivalent of his performance against Newcastle United.
Yeah. If Ebb's penalty was put into interpretive singing.
Well, I was saying to you before, because you put something up on Instagram, which was very funny, and I was saying to Vanessa, I was like, how bad is Chris Richards in this video? And she was like, just watch it, just watch it.
Yeah. So I put a picture of a screen grab of Chris Richards in the booth singing, and then a picture of Jean-Philippe Mateta with the big plaster over his ear. And said the real reason for Mateta's plaster over his ear is actually so he doesn't have to listen to Chris Richards singing. Chris Richards liked it within about 20 seconds of me posting a story on Instagram, so he must have been on then. He just sent back loads of crying emojis, but I did say obviously naturally fair play for him to, going so clearly out of his comfort zone, and it was clear how much it meant to all the DS Eagles, and they were buzzing. And any time I've ever had any experience with DS Eagles, they're just joyous. It's just so nice to be around them. It's just it gives you a whole different outlook on life, and shows that you probably shouldn't take it so seriously and let 5-0 defeats at Newcastle slide off your back.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, every time the club do sort of media work with them, they're great. They're really fun. Obviously, loving every minute of it, whether they're at the training ground or doing this video. And I think a few of them were at the finish line of the marathon march when you and I did it.
Yeah,
whatever it was, a few years ago. Just really enthusiastic. Like, it really rubs off on you, and it does put stuff into perspective. I'm sure when I go back on my WhatsApp group and everyone's still moaning about the game, I'll need a re-up on that enthusiasm. But yeah, it's obviously a great cause, and the Palace for Life are doing great stuff. So definitely go and check out the video if you haven't already.
And I was speaking to Bobby, who we had on a pod last season around when we did do the marathon march. And I've told him to hold at least me accountable to doing the bike one next year. So that this year's one is taking place this weekend, as I think it's in the wake of the COVID one, was Bournemouth that ended up being canned. So I think they're going to Bournemouth and starting at Bournemouth and cycling to Selhurst on the day for the game. So that's the plan for this weekend's one. I think there's 44 people doing it this time, which is an increase of 9 people on last year's one. So getting more and more interest. So yeah, I'm gonna try and commit to it next year. I need to request a bike from the missus for my birthday in August, and then start pedaling around the hills of South Norwood. I think that will put me in good stead.
Yes, good luck.
Yeah. Cypress Road, anyone, if you know where that is in South Norwood. I don't think I will make it up ever. So go over to Palace Alive and all their socials and support the record. I think it's actually being released on 7-inch vinyl. I whether it was a mock-up or not, I don't know, but I definitely saw a 7-inch vinyl at the premiere. Red coloured vinyl with Glad all over graffiti written on it. So yeah, support it, get behind it, and jobs are good 'un. I think that's it.
Yeah, we're going to lose to Bournemouth. That's my prediction.
Yep. Semenyo.
Yeah.
Another what could have been. No. Who knows? I like to think in recent weeks we've recovered from bad performances quite well this season. If you go back to, we took that hiding against Arsenal and recovered pretty well.
Yeah.
Maybe Wednesday was just a bit too soon to get over it this week. Two tough away games, lots of travel involved, and so on. So let's be positive. As Chris said on his voice note earlier, we need to try and stem the tide of defeats before the FA Cup semi-final, because you definitely don't want to go into it then, especially with a buoyant Aston Villa awaiting. I think they've lost one of their last 9 and the other 8 are wins now that they narrowly missed out on getting to the Champions League semi-final. So it's going to be tough, isn't it?
It is. But like you say, we need to bounce back. We need to show this fortitude that we're worried might be slipping away. I think Glasner has just said post-game, sometimes you just need to throw games in the bin, and we just need to do that with tonight's. It was shit. Don't piss about. Concentrate on the next one. We get a home win against Bournemouth, then everything looks a bit more rosy, doesn't it? So fingers crossed that's what happens.
Well, I mean, as he said earlier, if he was hating himself on Saturday night, I wonder what he's going to be doing on the flight home tonight. I agree with that sentiment. Throw it in the bin. Move on. Saturday comes round fast. Is it Saturday we play them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Saturday 3:00.
I've said really confidently, and I'm now actually looking. It's the lesser spotted 3 p.m. Saturday.
God, that's 2 home games in a row on a Saturday at 3:00. Look at that.
Absolutely mad.
Christmas has come early. Right. Jeez. Thanks for getting through this with me.
Thank you. Very cathartic.
As Albert was messaging us from a restaurant in Morocco saying that his wine wasn't chilled enough.
Grumble.
Indeed, curmudgeon. Right. So we are back next week, normal time as well. There's no midweek next week.
Next week is Arsenal.
Oh, another midweek.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, they come thick and fast. Jesus. Okay, we'll figure that, because I'm assuming we're both going to be there.
Yes. I think I bought your ticket.
Did you?
I can't remember. I've bought so many tickets. We'll both be at Arsenal. Somehow.
I don't remember going to Sal. We'll see. So yeah, we'll figure it out. There'll be a pod at some point next week, assuming we haven't lost 5-0 to Bournemouth and 5-0 to Arsenal and put ourselves in the bin.
Yeah, definitely put myself in the bin.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, and until next time, up the Palace.